mental and emotional abuse, false accusations, cheating, animal neglect. There's a lot to cover, so this will probably be long. I will absolutely forget to put things in here that might seem critical, so don't be afraid to ask questions. When I, M30, was 21, I met a girl, 20F at the time, through a dating app, and we hit it off pretty well. We were both pretty hardcore game nerds, and our first date was us hanging out in her dorm room playing Gauntlet Dark Legacy. Things seemed pretty normal until after the school year ended and the next one was soon to begin. This girl was an expert at weaponizing pity to her own gain. She would go on and on with sob stories that made people feel bad for her and do things for her. It took me a long time to realize this, but I was exposed to it fairly early on, unknowingly. Against my roommate's wishes, I moved her into our apartment and paid more rent because of it. I didn't really mind. I had a pretty good job as a research technician. However, the situation soon became that I was completely financially supporting her through college. Again, I didn't mind because I was being a supportive boyfriend. She also moved her dog in with her, which I was mostly okay with because she kept the poor thing locked up in her dorm for close to 18 hours a day. The dog was supposed to be her ESA, but she mainly just used her as a prop for more pity. No basic training, barely potty trained at 2 years old, attention-starved. Fast forward to the end of her penultimate semester at school. She was an art student majoring in wood sculpture or something similar. She comes to me bawling her eyes out, telling me that she is failing 2 of her classes, and she hasn't even begun her senior project, which is a major to-do for an art student because it requires an entire art show that she has yet to make a single piece for. I asked her what I can do to help, and initially I was just supposed to come to the studio with her after work and be the second person in the wood shop for safety purposes. What ended up happening was me doing 90% of her senior project by myself while she catches up on her other classes. While that is going on, I am starting my apprenticeship to become a CNC machinist. I would work 9 to 12 hours and then drive 45 minutes home. Then I would drive to an art studio and work on someone else's degree until 2:30 a.m. This went on for about 3 months. All throughout this, I am in denial and tell myself that this is true love, despite the fact that she was manipulating me into basically doing her life for her. She has very few friends because after a while, they all got sick of her asking to be driven everywhere. At 20, she didn't have a license, and to my knowledge, she still doesn't have one. This is important later on. And pay for everything. I'm not free of faults because of all the time I spent doing things for her, with her, when we were at home. I generally spent time with my roommate or friends that were over playing video games. This caused her to become very cold to me and her telling me that I wasn't dedicated to the relationship. She would then start to say things that started to tickle the paranoid part of my mind. Things about my roommate or friends that made me not want them interacting with each other. Not fair of me, but because of the language used, it was very hard. I spent a time being very paranoid and not mentally well due to a combination of this language, her coldness, and very pure dabs that I later found out can cause psychosis with consistent use. A year and a half goes by, and my relationship with my friend group has all but deteriorated completely. Between my paranoia and my time dedication to my girlfriend, I was just not a good friend. The girlfriend and I move in with my brother and his wife to save up money to buy a house. Initially, our stay was rent-free out of the generosity of my brother's heart, but because my girlfriend was so incapable of helping out around the house and used so much electricity playing video games, I ended up having to pay rent. At the 6-month mark, I were given an ultimatum. Either we find a house to buy and move out, or she needed to move out, but I could continue living there. Of course, I didn't share this with my girlfriend, but I knew I had to make a very hard decision. I pulled the trigger and bought a house that we were looking at but weren't completely sold on. Huge regret. We moved in the night before Christmas Eve. Even her own family is so tired of her that only her mom shows up to help us move on her side. All right, so we're officially homeowners. I naively thought that the worst of things was behind us, and this would be a new and awesome chapter in our lives. Much like all my assumptions and judgment, I was wrong. Once we moved in, I gave my GF a proposition. She could take a year to herself and establish her woodworking business in her own time. She agrees to it, and I'm excited to start a new chapter with her in this house and with the business. In that year, the situation deteriorates pretty quickly. I switch jobs and am working harder than I have ever worked in my life. She drops the pretense of doing anything with her life entirely. She 100% video game after video game. She starts reading erotic novels, which at first was a welcome change because the sex changed. Then it became apparent that what I was providing was not enough. She directly said things to me that would probably put a percentage of men on swatch. She gained 60 pounds, and she stopped doing chores or taking care of the now 2 dogs that we own. I would commonly come home to poop or pee on the floor within 8 feet of her while she's completely oblivious. Then came a confrontation and an ultimatum from me. I told her that she needs to find a job if she's not going to pursue her business, and she needs to start taking care of herself as well as the dogs while I'm not home or she's gone. She responded with a tirade that berated me as a control freak that kept her trapped in the house to do my bidding. How I kept her from getting a license because I wouldn't pay $300 for her to go to a 3rd driving school. How I pressured her into a woodworking business that she never wanted, and generally just how toxic of a person I was. The family that raised her ended up disowning her because of her behavior, and I stood by her and defended her to these people to the point that I had to file a PPO against her brother and stepdad for legitimate death threats. Stepdad is a former sniper instructor with one of the armed forces. Rounding off the 2nd year at the house, the situation has become terminally toxic. The relationship is essentially dead. She has a job in special education that I have to leave work to take her to. On the weekends, she's usually gone hanging out with her bio dad, supposedly. Sex is a once every fiscal quarter thing, and it usually just left me feeling emasculated because of what she would say during and after. She guilt-tripped me into fostering dogs for a rescue, which completely destroyed the 1st floor in the house because I was the only one looking after all 3 dogs, and I worked 9 to 12 hours a day. On days that we were both home together, we'd spend it in different rooms, unless we're out doing something that she wanted to do. She found a group of people online to play Destiny 2 and an online version of D&D with. I tried to be part of the group, but I was slowly edged out of it. It was very clear to me that she had interest in a couple of the members of the group, and I attempted to call her out on it. That became a world-class gaslighting event that had even me believe that I was a controlling piece of shit. Eventually, we start openly talking about breaking up, and all that would be involved in it. That's when she really starts to push the limits of manipulating me. She starts holding the dogs over my head. The 2 that we actually own have fully become my dogs, and I love them to death. They are my companion animals that I would do anything for, and she knew that. When we adopted the 2nd one, I paid all the money, and it was my qualifications that got us the dog, but she filled out all of her information on the adoption papers. She then starts to talk about how verbally and physically abusive I am, and how that would look if the police got involved. It goes back and forth like this for weeks, and then one night she just didn't show up to the house at 9:30 p.m. I texted her and said if she's not coming home, then she needs to take the foster dog back to the rescue because I can't take care of 3 dogs on my own. Without saying anything to me, she did. I cried over that dog more than I cried over her. So I'm alone with these 2 dogs in my home. I have no friends close by, and I feel lower than I've ever felt in my entire life. And I then start being pathetic and texting her, but she is being absolutely cruel to me and saying that we might be able to make it work, but I'd have to compromise pretty much everything that makes me who I am to get her back. She tells me she's staying with a friend that I know a few miles away, and she'd be back in a few weeks if I change. That's when she fucked up. To this day, I could not tell you what told me to do this, but something in my head told me to look at that friend's Facebook, not snoop or anything, just go on to their page. So glad to be spending my vacation with my love, her husband. They weren't even in the state. Without any accusations, I give my, at this point, ex-GF an opportunity to explain herself, and she continues to gaslight me like I'm a complete bag of dog shit. Finally, I got her to admit the truth, and it was as heartbreaking as it was an immense relief. She left the country to go meet up with a couple of the guys that she met online. She fabricated leaving so she could have a guilt-free trip to do what she wanted, and then come back to her domestic life and hopefully have more control when she got back. I told her never come back. I did everything legally and served her an eviction notice. While I was moving her stuff out of the master bedroom, I find a notebook that has a single page written in it. It's a ledger that shows that she was making double what she told me she was, and she was saving up money to leave me when she had the first opportunity. I have been struggling financially for months trying to support us, and here she was stacking money to jump ship. As she left the 2 dogs with me with no real indication of when she was coming back and no support, financial or otherwise, to take care of them, I claimed ownership of them after 9 days, as is legal in my state. Now comes the real dark part. She goes full nuclear on me. She starts threatening me with illegal recordings that she took of our arguments. The recordings didn't incriminate me at all with anything, and in fact, they just make me seem more sad. Saying that she would take these to the police, as well as hinting that she was going to tell the police that I illegally modified one of my firearms. I converted a sporterized rifle, which is perfectly legal in my state. So she was basically threatening me with death by ATF raid. She then started blasting me on social media, saying that I was a domestic abuser and all this other horrible stuff, including SA, about me. But that got squashed pretty quickly by people that knew me, and she was forced by social pressure and a cease and desist letter from me to take those things down. In the end, it was pretty sad for her. She threw 7 years away for a week of fun because she thought she could do better. I sacrificed so much time, money, and sanity for her. I dealt with death threats for her. I was even making a ring for her at my job. My stepmom gifted me a very large Trinity-cut rainbow topaz for the gem. I'm not extremely skilled with my bare hands, but I was modeling something that I could cut from wax and cast. I threw the gem in with her stuff and told her I didn't want it because it was unclean to me. The only thing I regret in the whole process was not checking her boxes before she left, because she made off with my entire first edition Harry Potter set that my mom bought for me as I was growing up. Now to the happy part of this tale. I'll try to keep this short. After a little while, I, by some miracle, reconnect with the girl that I thought of as the one that got away when I was 19. Almost 8 years of no contact, and we picked up right where we left off. The chemistry and love was so different than anything I had experienced in the last 7 years. She really helped rebuild and remake the life that had just burnt down. Fast forward a few years, and we now have a son who is perfect in every way. She's about to be a certified nurse and take even more financial strain off of my shoulders than she already has. Close people to me tell me all the time how much happier and alive I look. This is the love I've been looking for and so very much needed.